Hey everybody, Lawrence here with Dirty Basement Terrain, coming at you with another one. Now, recently somebody I work with knew about, all the stuff I build and whatnot, because I'd showed him pictures, and asked me to build a tree because he wanted something to put on his desk. And, through some talks and stuff, I basically got told artist choice. So, basically what they're getting, I'm entitling a tree of woe. And this is going to be on their desk or somewhere. I don't care. But I basically can't remember. I saw someone using clay or Sculpey, but I used DOS clay. But you'll see. I just wanted to build something really, truly evil. So, a tree of woe. But before I get to showing you how I made it, I want to give a big thank you to all my patrons. As always, your guys' help every month is greatly appreciated, and I can't thank you enough. Okay, let's get to it. We've all seen the twisted wire method, and this is exactly what I cut a bunch of aluminum wire, roughly 24 inches long. And right now, I'm just twisting up the trunk. I just want to get the trunk itself twisted, and then, you go up a little further and you start splitting off and start twisting branches, and eventually work your way thinner and thinner for, when you keep splitting off for different branches. Don't go too thin though, because then it becomes really weak and kind of pointless. But again, it's just twist until you get to a point where you're happy, and then I'm going to trim off the excess. It is a very effective and simple way to make a tree armature. Of course, I want to put a more of a crooked look to the trunk itself, so I'm just kind of bending it in nasty looking, evil, twisted ways. A little bit of pain in the butt, but that's what I'm doing. Now, I need to bulk this up because eventually I'm going to be using some clay on it, so I'm using a tried and true method of using some aluminum foil. I'm just folding it into strips, and you can see I've already got a pile already done. But this is just so I can start bulking out the whole tree, just so I don't have to use quite as much clay. And this is a quick, easy way to bulk out without, having to use a lot of other material. As you can see, I'm taking those strips and I'm just wrapping them around and around and around. Some people will use hot glue to secure it in place, but I thought, I do use some eventually, I think, but I'm just bulking the trunk out, and then I'll go to the branches and everything and whatnot, and just fill it out so I don't have to use quite as much material later on. Of course, I'm using some black Mod Podge here, and I'm just going over all the aluminum foil. Because I didn't really rely too heavily on hot glue to secure it in place, I'm just going to, use this Mod Podge, and hopefully that'll hold it in place long, just to secure everything together, and also to give more of a sticky surface for the clay later on to adhere to. At least that's what I was telling myself when I was doing this. But yeah, this is just painting, just slopping some black Mod Podge over the entire thing, just to make sure nothing really goes loose or whatnot. Now the bases I'm using are 5 1/4 across, and unfortunately the roots are bigger than that, so I'm just bending them to a different shape so they'll actually fit onto the base to the very edges. But I don't want any hanging over the edge of the base. And of course, that creates a little bit of a gap underneath, so I'm going to have to use some material to fill that up. And quite simply, I just want to kind of get an idea here where the roots are going to stick, poke them in, and just start getting different pieces of foam, and I'm going to basically fill up that empty space again, so I don't have to. These are cheap offcuts, and this is just a space eater, honestly. I'm just eating up that empty space so later on, so I don't have to use quite as much material, because the material I'm using later on is going to be wet and it'll take longer to dry if it's really thick. Okay. Now I want to do clay for the bark. This is DOS clay, pretty simple. I'm just using water, spray it to keep it moist. And I'm going to start rolling it out and just kind of make it flat because I don't want real thick clay, or real thick chunks. So I'm just going to roll it out as thin as what I think I can get it, and it still be workable. A little bit of effort, but not really. I mean, just put a video on or podcast or something, listen to it. That's what I do, honestly. And now I want to cut these in strips and just start wrapping it around and smoothing it out with some water. And just trying to get, I'm only going to do one section of root at a time here. But just get it all covered up, smoothed out. Water helps because I am using clay. Now that I've got that done, I want to actually put in some texture for the bark pattern. I'm just using this fondant sculpting tool. Just carve lines into it quick. This is not it's a little bit messy, but honestly, it's relatively simple. Once I get that done, I'll dip my brush in water and smooth it out. Now I have a bunch of skeletons, and I need a bunch of heads. So, and these are cheap Dollar Tree skeletons, and they got horrible mold lines, so of course I gotta scrape off the mold lines. It's not really all that difficult. Cut them off, and just to make it easier for what I'm gonna do later, I'm gonna cut the backs of the heads off. Trust me, it makes sense. And boom, I got a skull. Now let's go do this a lot more times. Now I'm going to take some of these skulls, and being that I've already run clay up and down the trunk, I'm just basically kind of cramming them in there and smushing them around and smoothing the clay around it. In all honesty, I haven't even used glue on this. The smoothing of the clay around the skulls holds it in place. One did fall off, and I super glued it back in place, but it's ripped. Highly unlikely it's going to fall off. And just run a whole bunch of skulls up and down this trunk. Like I said, I'm putting across this point of evil. Okay, now I got to start working on the bases. Because there's still a lot of empty space and room, so sculpt them all. Basically, put enough water in to make it the consistency of cottage cheese, and I'm spreading it around. And as you can see, I don't have to use quite as much because I used the extra chunks of foam just to eat up the space underneath the tree. Just mush it around, keep mashing it on until you get to where it needs to be. Again, not that difficult a process. Now I have twisted wire, which I'm using for ropes. I'll put a link in the video on how to actually make this. But I need to make nooses. So I'm wrapping up chunk around a pencil here for the actual noose part and just twisting it around the bottom here. And this is a quick and easy way to make a noose with some twisted wire. Boom, done. You can actually, it's just 2 pieces of jeweler wire and a drill bit and a drill, and I just let it go until it got as tight as I could. And you see, real simple noose, done. I'll trim it down so it's not quite as long. Bada boom, bada bing, And you see I even put a skeleton in one. Or 2, or 3, or 4. Now I want some tall grass tufts. I can't remember the name of this product, but it's from Woodland Scenics Tall Field Grass, I think. But just kind of get a little bunch, bend it in half, dip that bend in the PVA glue, and just keep twisting until it actually holds. Boom. Tall grass tufts. I also want to do spiders. Yeah, I know I'm jumping around a lot here, but hey. So, I have these cheap plastic spiders I got at Halloween 1 year. So I got to primer them up. Of course, I got to primer up all the skeletons. These are Games Workshop skeletons I've had that a friend gave me that I'm just using for this, that I used to hang in the nooses, and of course the nooses themselves too. But right now I'm just basically primering all the little bits and bobs that are going to go on the tree. Because they need painted, so... Of course, I'm going to give them all a quick zenithal highlight with a gray. And this is all done through the airbrush, but you can use a rattle can. Or you can actually dry brush on some gray if you don't have either. So you can do that too. It works. But I have the airbrush, so I'm going to use it quick. And of course now, all the different items are going to get a quick dry brush with some white. Going from, just from the top. I know some people will spray it on, but for some reason, I just always prefer to do this step with a brush. I don't know why, I just do. So, hey, I'm making this, so I'm going to do it how I want to do it. Now I'm just grabbing some contrast from Citadel Skeleton Horde, I think it's called, and just paint up all the skeletons with that, because I'm really not interested in doing a high-level display paint job, even though this is going to be on display, but whatever. Since I already basically did the previous steps for Slap Chop, I am going to do the final step in Slap Chop. I said, Skeleton Horde for the skeletons, and boom. Quick, easy, done. Now for the spider bodies, I'm using some Vallejo Express paint. I'm using a camouflage green. I don't know why I picked that color. I was just looking at all my different paints, and I was like, yeah, that one will work. And so now I'll just hit all the different spider bodies with this green quick. I said, this is a slap chop job for all the little bits and bobs. I'm not, super concerned because I'm not worried about winning a Golden Demon. I don't care about those. So, boom, done. I want it to look good for a display. Not display painting, but from 3 feet away. So, that's what I'm going for. And of course for the legs, I'm going with a greasy black. It winds up making the feet black and the cracks and stuff black, but it gives it the white legs, like a grayish greasy look, greasy black. So it actually wound up working really well. So I'm not complaining. Now, the sculpt mold is dry. I'm going to just start adding some color, but first I want to primer this thing up. Again, this is something you could do with a rattle can or a brush, but again, the airbrush is within arm's reach, so I'm going to make use of it. And just primer all the trees in black. Not everything's all primered and ready. I'm going to start painting the dirt. I'm going with a dark brown. My go-to colors, I think, is burnt umber for the dirt. And just try and get the dirt as close to 100% as I can. Because it's a base color, so I'm covering everything up. And of course, a mid-tone brown, I'm going to overbrush 70 to 85% coverage, just leaving all the cracks and crevices alone. I think I said nutmeg brown, yeah. But a mid-tone, a brown. I mean, literally, just brown. But again, just overbrush all the dirt areas that I hit with the nutmeg brown. And now I'm going to be using a khaki color for a quick dry brush all over the dirt areas. Basically a light brown or a tan, whatever you want to call it. But Just hit all the dirt areas real quick, and boom, quick, easy, done. Now for the tree itself, the roots, the branches, all the wood areas. For the base coat here, 100% coverage. I mixed a dark blue-gray, which is my go-to for stone, with my burnt umber dark brown. This will give it like a sickly death look, I guess. I don't want it to look happy, healthy, and pretty. I want it to look sick, sad, and death. So the gray actually works. Now for the mid-tone, I just mixed my medium brown with a medium gray. Mixing in the gray with the brown, it works. It gives it that worn out, aged look. So, hey, it works. So I am not complaining. That's how I'm doing it. And once again, I mixed a light gray with the khaki color. And I'm doing a quick dry brush highlights. And adding the same tone of gray to the browns just really does work and gives it like the worn out, aged look. So that's what I'm going with. I like how it looks. I am really pleased with something as simple as just mixing a gray into the brown. It sucks. It sucks the life out of the richness of the brown. Now, I'm using a dark brown wash, and this will bring a little life back to the tree, but don't worry, we'll take care of that. And I'm just slopping it on everything. The entire tree, the dirt, everything. Just to soak into those cracks and crevices that I may have overdone with on the paint. Now that the wash is dry, I'm just basically doing a quick highlight dry brush. A lot lighter than I did the first time around. At least I think I am. And this is just to bring back all the details and edges and whatnot and make them pop. Now here I'm using some aged bone from Reaper Paints. It's what I got for now. So, and I'm just going to use it to highlight a few edges of the skull, the forehead, the eye sockets. Just a few highlights to make them pop just a tiny bit more. I want them to blend into the tree, but I also don't want them to be so completely blended in you won't see them. So just a few quick highlights and just make them pop just a tiny little bit. Of course, I can't do something in nature without moss, so I have a moss paste mixer I made up. And yes, this is the exact same footage from the moss paste video. Hey, it works. But it's just a matter of brushing it on in different places, wherever you want. Anywhere that looks good, it works. It's honestly really simple. I'm using a brush, and it also actually works to hide cracks and mistakes. Really good thing to use. But again, anywhere you think moss will grow, just do. And then, of course, I'm using some yellow grass, fine turf from Woodland Scenics just to sprinkle it on, just to make the moss pop a little bit more. Now that that's all done, I need to actually start adding some of the little bits and bobs, the skeletons, and right now. So I'm just using some super glue and gluing them in place. At least the ones that go on the bases. I have ones that are sitting. Each base gets one that's sitting and one that's laying face down. So it's just a matter of finding a place where they fit right. Super glue, boom, done. Of course, right now I want to actually add some flocking. So I'm using watered down PVA 50-50 mix. And I'm going to paint on PVA where I want the flocking to be. I'm going to sprinkle on some earth color flocking, some burnt grass, and then some yellow grass. This is all fine turf for a highlight, and pat it down and tap it off. Boom. Now, I want to actually start adding those tall grass tufts that I made a while ago. I just take a tool, a little spike, poke a hole in, dip one end of the tuft into some glue, and insert it into the hole. I don't like making things complicated. I like keeping them as simple as possible. And this method is simple, and it works. And it looks good, too, so I'm not changing. Of course, my go-to grass tuft manufacturer, Huge Miniatures, some burnt overgrown. And it's just a matter of dipping it in some PVA and then putting it in places where I think, especially around the bases of those tall tufts, just to hide where it actually goes into the dirt. But again, easy. Okay, I lost the footage, or honestly, I may have just forgotten to record it, where I applied the webs. The webs are just stretched out, used dryer sheets. I'll put a link in the description of how I make the webbings, but it's stretching out the dryer sheets and just tearing off chunks and applying it in the different areas where I think it works, and then using some watered down PVA to secure it in place. And once that's done, I'll hit it up with some matte sealer just to stiffen it up and make it more secure. Well, if I got all this webbing and I painted up those spiders, yeah, let's start gluing on spiders. And I wanted to wait until after all the webbing was on to actually attach the spiders. And I said, this is pretty easy. Just glue them all in place. Little super glue gels, some on the feet and on the underside of the body. And wherever I think would look cool for a spider to be. Of course, I have to attach all these nooses. Duh! That's real quick. It's wire. It's really bendable. Just twist it around. And I don't even glue this stuff on. Boom. Done. I got a noose. And of course, one of the hanging skeletons, same deal. Just twist the wire around the branch, which is why you leave so much. And you have your nooses on the tree. I mean, you can put a spot of super glue to secure them in place, but I don't, because it's honestly not wholly necessary. So, and there you go. I mean, I'm really happy with how these turned out. The DOS clay, what did have a few drawbacks, and the fact that it can crack, which is why I had to hide some spots with the moss. But otherwise, I really like how they just trees of woe. I mean, they're just... You see something like this on the table, you know your players are going to have a bad day. Seriously. Spiders, skeletons hanging. It's going to be a bad day for the players. Hey everyone, if you watch this far, it means you watch in. And as always, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. If you want to leave a comment, go down there, leave a comment. Or, hey, you know what, if you're building something similar or something that just looks evil, come to the Discord and post pictures of it. I love seeing people's builds. I really do. So, come to the Discord. Or tell me I'm an idiot. I don't care. Come to the Discord. But again, as always, guys, it doesn't matter whether you're building for yourself, your friends, or whoever. Well, but when you're building something evil, the only person that matters is you, because it's your terrain. All right, see you guys.